Breaking news stories as we come on the air tonight. President Donald Trump has declared a victory for female athletes.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
While the president celebrates promises made, promises kept, what about the price of eggs? The price of eggs literally, and how the price of eggs could derail Trump's plans. Plus, why aren't Democrats talking about eggs? Instead, Democrats leading the Trump resistance have found a different hill they are willing to die on.
USA! 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 USA!
Yeah. This would be a memo for Democrats when you are chanting about something that nobody outside of Washington knows what it is. Probably not a winning strategy. So we're going to see how that works out. And with that, we welcome you to the Ferris Network on television. We begin with Donald Trump, who last night told the truth, and he got ripped for it, simply because his name is Donald Trump. And that's our Why It Matters memo. Every president in my lifetime has had to repeat this mantra. We believe in a two-state solution with Palestinians and Israelis living side by side in peace and harmony. Blah, blah, blah. So, I am going to tell you what nobody on TV has the guts to say. It didn't work, and it is not going to work. And 24 hours ago, Donald Trump threw 50 years of American foreign policy out the window because it wasn't working.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
We call balls and strikes on this show, so it's time for a reality check. In fact, we gave you one last night, just as the president finished up his remarks in real time. He changed the Middle East in his first term. The Abraham Accords, peace with Israel and a number of its Arab neighbors. Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which we were told was going to start a war and all these things. It did not. Iran now seems to be on its heels, not because of the Biden administration's policies, but despite of it. There's, I think, a lot of appetite, especially in the United States, to say the way we've been dealing with the Palestinians for the past 50 years by both Republicans and Democrats hasn't worked. Why not give something new a try? So now let me tell you why it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked because the Palestinians have been offered a two-state solution time and time again, and they have rejected it. Nobody talks about that in Washington. 1948, the Arabs rejected the partition plan and launched a war against then the Jewish people in Israel. In 1967, Arab armies invaded Israel. Then in 2000 at Camp David, the Palestinians were offered 95% of what they wanted, but Yasser Arafat rejected it. In 2008, Palestinians rejected it again. None of the coverage over the past 24 hours of Trump's plan laid out that very simple fact. All this fact-checking of whether Trump can carry out his plan to get the Palestinians out of Gaza and rebuild the place. And everybody, maybe then, could move on with their lives.
When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. When you're a reality television real estate developer, every problem is a resort to be built.
This is not anything of a plan. This is a complete American imperialism at its roots, at its core.
It is a fantasy to think that ethnic cleansing in the 21st century can be condoned.
Oh, it's been condoned over and over and over again, if you even want to call it ethnic cleansing. I lived and covered this conflict for 4 years. I have a better idea. Let's admit that the status quo is not working, and it's not working because of the Palestinians. It hasn't worked for 50 years. There is no two-state solution. The Palestinians want to destroy Israel. They say it over and over and over again. So let's tell the truth. 15,000 Hamas fighters remain in Gaza and control the Gaza Strip. So you have 1.8 million people living in an area slightly bigger than New York City with no housing or infrastructure, no sewage, and a pathological medieval army controlling the Gaza Strip. That is all Hamas's fault. And history tells us that aid flows into Gaza, Hamas will steal it and build more tunnels and rearm in order to attack Israel. They've done it over and over and over again. Conventional wisdom for the past 50 years hasn't worked, but nobody will say that. They just want to trash Trump because he called them out. Begin tonight with Joel Rubin, former Foreign Affairs Office at the State Department, started a group called J Street, trying to start a two-state solution, and Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill. Okay, we can all agree, and I know I am surrounded here, literally. We can all agree that the past 50 years has not worked, right?
Yes, we completely disagree on the reasons why, though.
Well, obviously, but okay. So given the fact that it has not worked, why not at least examine and give a fair shake to the guy who is saying, let's try something new?
Hey, look, Donald Trump, he was on the cusp of being seen as someone who's bringing stability to this conflict. We've just had 2 weeks of a ceasefire, and now overnight, he's decided to throw it all out. Overnight, he said, you know what? This ceasefire process, the one that was envisioned to develop what we call a third phase, meaning what to do about Gaza, negotiating with our friends and allies in the region, negotiating with Israel. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to come up with my own independent idea that nobody believes.
Well, hold on, though.
That's sort of outlandish.
Okay, but you just by your own admission stated that he is the guy who got a ceasefire when Joe Biden couldn't for a year. Maybe he's onto something.
Let me explain. He got the ceasefire because it was actually baked into 8 months of diplomacy by the Biden administration that he joined with. And now he's in the position where he's winning on this issue, getting a ceasefire. He has Netanyahu here. He has the heads of Egypt and Jordan coming. Why did he turn his back on this process?
I don't think he did, but I'm guessing, Niall, you do. This is what I'm going to point out. Majority of Palestinians support Hamas. 57% of Gazans, 82% of Palestinians living in the West Bank support an organization that says we want to wipe out Israel. That is indisputable. Why on earth should the United States continue to spend another day, and why should Israel spend another day, saying that they should allow this organization to control and to have any existence in either the West Bank or in Gaza?
Because the way to wean people away from violence and from armed struggle, as they would see it, is to provide a political path forward. You laid out in your introduction the failure of the two-state solution. When has an American administration really put the screws to Israel to abide by a two-state solution? Israel has been illegal occupation of the West Bank for 50 years.
Bill Clinton did it, and George W. Bush did it.
And the problem was that the Palestinians were not offered a contiguous state. They were offered parcels of land. If we get back into the 2000 proposal, we'll be here all night. The point is, Palestinians are radicalized by the inability to make progress by peaceful means. You talk about the Palestinian support for Hamas. Hold on one second. The Prime Minister of Israel is an accused war criminal. The former National Security Minister of Israel is convicted by Israeli courts of supporting terrorism. The finance minister.
Okay, so if you just want to demonize Israel here, but I think the larger point though is
it's not. Why is it demonizing Israel to say Benjamin Netanyahu is an accused war criminal?
Because anybody can accuse anybody of anything. The
International Criminal Court. It's not
right, which is the most anti-Semitic organization in the world.
I'm going to take a bit of middle ground here. Now I'm moving in the middle, which is I think it's outlandish that he was accused by the ICC for war crimes. But I will say he has never embraced the two-state solution either. There was a prime minister, Yitzhak Rabin, who did, and at the time that he did it at the beginning of the Oslo process, Netanyahu was on the streets protesting against that. So I think it's disingenuous to say that somehow only the Palestinians who have, I agree with you, rejected two-state solutions, that they're the only ones that have.
Majority of Palestinians don't support a two-state solution. When the Israelis gave Gaza to the Palestinians without any conditions and without walling it off or anything else, they turned it into a terror state. Again, why? And we have been told over and over again, Niall, that Gazans are refugees. So when offered, hey, you can go back to an area that is full of rubble, okay, and controlled by Hamas, or let's call the Arab world's bluff and say, do you really care about the Palestinians? Why don't you take some and give them the opportunity at a better life? Why would that not be a better solution?
For whom would it be a better solution? It is up to the Palestinians to decide where they live. It is not up to the President of the United States to shunt people around.
It was not up to the million-plus Jews living in the Arab world when they were all kicked out of Arab lands over the past 50 or 60 years.
Wrongly.
So it wasn't up to them.
Exactly. But why are we then defending the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians if we agree that the ethnic cleansing of Jewish people is wrong?
We're not defending ethnic cleansing, and by definition, people are told that those who are, quote, living in Gaza are refugees. So if an area is complete rubble, you're just saying we should abandon the Palestinians and let them go back to rubble?
No, I'm not. I'm saying it is up to the people of the Palestinian territories to decide where they wish to live. It is not up to Donald Trump. It is not up to the U.S. military. It is not up to Benjamin Netanyahu to dictate to another people where they should live if those people are on their own land.
Unless they are using that land to commit terrorist acts and to start wars. But Joel, I'll ask you this question.
Yeah.
Okay. Where is Egypt? Where is Jordan? Where is the Arab world that says they care so much about the Palestinians, and why does the U.S. media ignore all of that in this story?
Well, Egypt, in and of itself, has its own concerns about the Muslim Brotherhood, of
right,
which
because they don't want a
Hamas
bunch of terrorists either.
And they do not want the Muslim Brotherhood there. They do not want Hamas in there. They've built a wall alongside the South. But there's a complexity to this that we have to recognize. It's what Niall is pointing out. Look, ultimately, the Palestinians want to live in Gaza, and they want to live in the West Bank. A real plan forward would be one where all the Palestinian entities would be included, including the Palestinian Authority, which has not been given a role in governing Gaza.
Right,
and
because the people of Gaza voted them out. They were corrupt.
Well, they voted them out, but they're sitting there, and they're a government that actually Israel works with for security in the West Bank. This is what we need to be thinking about if we're going to get there.
The fact that everybody thinks about this in Washington is, oh, it's so complex, oh, it's so difficult, oh, it's so this.
It is.
Maybe what Donald Trump said, though, is, no, it's not. And maybe what it requires is somebody to not say we need to study this, but maybe it says, look, nothing's been working. We are going to enforce a solution, may not be perfect in every sense of the word, may not be perfect for the Israelis either, but at least it's going to move forward.
There's a word in Yiddish, we call it balagan, which means chaos and craziness. So he's created
that was Arabic, too.
And Hebrew, for that matter.
It's
a balagan. Look, if we want to spend $1 trillion to try to nation build in Gaza Strip, which is in worse shape than Iraq ever was, and cost thousands of American lives most likely to deal with it, have at it. I didn't know that the American people voted for a nation-building exercise in the Gaza Strip, and I don't know what the American interest is in sending troops to do that. Outside of that, then we have to engage
let the Israelis get Hamas out of the Gaza Strip, which I think we all agree.
They've been trying.
No, they've been handcuffed by the Biden administration. That's a different issue. And I think the reason right now that you're seeing the ceasefire fall apart is because Israel is going to
demand. Still going.
I know, but it's going to fall apart because Israel is going to demand Hamas surrender, and Hamas isn't going to surrender, and then we're going to be back at war. Again, Niall, if we really care about the Palestinians, the innocent Palestinians who we were told to exist, who just want peace and security, despite the fact that 75% of them supported the October 7th attacks, isn't the fundamental bottom line, the starting line, have to be Hamas must go, people who support violence and organized terror must go, and then we can have an honest conversation?
No, because the reason is that you need to work on the causes of support for political violence, not the manifestation of it. And let me hold on 1 second. You talked about if we care about the Palestinians, having just said that Israel was handcuffed by the Biden administration, handcuffed while they killed 47,000 Palestinians. 47,000. And the handcuffed.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, according to a terrorist organization. Anyway, I don't think we solved this problem today. It's been going on for 50 years. Now we're at 50 years in a day. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Leland.
Always a pleasure.
Pleasure's always ours. Quick programming alert. We're pleased to announce starting Monday, the show begins at 9 p.m. Eastern. Our time slot may be different. Our commitment to fairness and to objectivity will not change. Starts with the Why It Matters memo, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. There will also be a repeat for those of you on the West coast. Today, Donald Trump signed an executive order to kick men out of women's sports. Will Democrats keep fighting common sense?
Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay.
We are 16 days into President Trump's second term, and it appears the resistance, otherwise known as Democrats, have finally found a hill to die on. At a rally today, Democrats lined up to defend something that most Americans had never heard of, USAID programs. Team Trump says the agency wastes money on ultra-liberal projects like $1.5 million on job opportunities for LGBTQ people in Serbia, $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam, $3.2 million on helping migrants readjust to living in their own country, another $3 million for LGBTQ rights in the Caribbean, and just under $500,000 to promote atheism in Nepal. The list goes on and on and on and on. But if you listen to Democrats today, democracy here in America will cease to exist if President Trump and Musk get rid of them.
We're not going to have apartheid in America anymore. Hey, ho, ho. Elon Musk has got to go.
When President Trump ran, he said he would make America safe again. Nothing about this makes us safer.
But this is not a playground. This is our nation. We will not shut up. We will stand up. We will speak up. We will rise up. This is a dictatorship in the making.
Is that the Republicans, they are losing when they attack our healers.
Without that, we have no country. We are not secure. We cannot protect democracy.
But joke's on them, because who knows better how to work in an authoritarian country than all of you?
Chris Cillizza is with us, journalist, senior advisor of the DGA Group. As you can see, author of one of the great Substacks of all time. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Good
to see you.
Is it telling that rather than defending any of these programs, all Democrats are doing is attacking Elon Musk?
I think it is. And I think Rahm Emanuel, who I know a lot of Democrats hate, former Chicago mayor, former Obama White House chief of staff, but I tend to think is very smart about realpolitik, what works and what doesn't. I'm paraphrasing him, but he essentially has said, you got to know which pitches to swing at and not swing at all of them. Now, I have a very close friend who works at USAID. She does great work. This is not about the agency writ broadly in what they do. But if you're picking a political fight, like this is the hill, to your point, the hill that we're going to fight on. Number one, as you said, no one knows what it is or what it does, okay? And then, to the extent that you inform people about what it does, guess what most Americans don't really want to spend money on? Other countries, right? America first. That's what Donald Trump ran on. So it's like, I'm not sure that this is the fight you want to pick, because even if people do find out about this agency that they don't know what it does, it's a thing that they're going to say, well, why is it a $38 billion budget? Why don't we get rid of some of it? And you know who especially feels that way? 18 to 29-year-old men who, not for nothing, Donald Trump won in the 2024 election.
It's confounding. There's the argument that the reason that Democrats are so for it is because so many of these programs basically further their agenda, both in the United States and abroad. But you think about like something else that's happening, right? Which would be, and I'm going to say this really bluntly, the price of eggs.
Yeah.
Waffle House is now ordering a surcharge, 50-cent surcharge on every egg ordered, according to a memo from Waffle House, one of my favorite people. In fact, people are now sharing on social media Donald Trump in a Waffle House uniform serving eggs. A little different than McDonald's. And here was Chris Matthews on MSNBC earlier.
Trump's got to deal with that. He's got to deal with prices. And it'll come back to bite him in November next year. He will lose votes in the close House races for the re-election next year on drug prices, egg prices. It's going to be as basic as that.
Now, there's an irony, right, of course, of Chris Matthews talking about egg prices. We don't know what the free-range eggs in Nantucket cost him this summer. I'm just pointing out, I mean, this guy has real experience with this. But to that point, there are things that Donald Trump is going to have to face, and presidents do not get to define their own presidency. We know that. Why not fight on those issues? I don't get it.
I don't either. Because people always say to me, not always, when people ask me, what was the election about? I say, look, I'll make it really, really plain. 31% of people said the economy was the most important issue in deciding their vote. That was tops, not surprisingly, but the top issue. Of that group, Donald Trump won 69% of the vote and Kamala Harris won 29% of the vote. That's the election, right? We can talk. There's a million other things, change versus more of the same, and blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, that's it. So to me, yes, I think every day they should go up here on Capitol Hill and be like, you know what the price of eggs are today? Fill in the blank. And that's up 30 cents or 20 cents or 15 cents.
Price of eggs are up because of bird flu, but
the point is,
Joe Biden can tell you, Americans don't care why the price is up.
Donald Trump blamed Joe Biden for price stuff that Joe Biden had nothing to do with, and it hurt Joe Biden politically. We're not talking about, look, the American public is not a bunch of economists debating like what actually raises the prices of your groceries. They're the people who buy your groceries.
So the issue, though, of cutting government spending has been popular back to the time of Ronald Reagan. Take a listen.
Yep.
There is no magic money machine. Every dollar the government spends comes out of your pockets. Every dollar the government gives to someone has to first be taken away from someone else. So it's our moral duty to make sure that we can justify every one of your tax dollars.
I can't understand the political logic of jumping up and down and saying, must spend all money.
Here's what I would say. You've got to think of the context. They lost everything in the 2024 election. White House, they didn't win back the House majority. They lost the Senate majority. They don't have a majority of governorships. They don't have control of a majority of the state legislatures. This party is on the mat, and so they're looking for ways to get up. In my estimation, purely from a political perspective, this ain't the USAID is not the way to do it. You start by saying, Donald Trump said he was going to bring gas prices, egg prices, grocery prices down. How is he doing on day 16?
Right.
How is he doing on day 17?
Well, I'll tell you what, the flip side is they don't have any leadership.
Well, this is exactly. It's a vacuum.
Right.
It's a vacuum.
Chuck Schumer with, chanting we're going to win didn't really work out. Good to see you. Thank you, my friend.
Good to see you.
First wrote about this in War Notes. That's our daily newsletter. Comes out just after 4 p.m. Eastern. Insights and analysis on the top stories of the day. You can subscribe for free at warnotes.com. Also see you on social media at Leland Vittert. Country music star John Rich, there he is, live and in person. He says he has figured out a way to project and protect. John, you're going to have to do this segment from big banks that want to close their accounts. He's next with why President Trump's yelling at bank CEOs.
But I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business.
We can all agree, at least we should be able to agree, that discrimination is objectively bad. It's wrong. It's a pretty obvious statement. But as President Trump pointed out a few weeks ago, banks are doing it all the time. It is called debanking. In other words, canceling the accounts of customers or businesses the bank disapproves of.
I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase. At a Senate hearing today, Trump and conservatives found an unusual ally, Elizabeth Warren, the progressive senator from Massachusetts.
For me, this is straightforward. It doesn't matter who you voted for, what you believe in, or the origin of your last name. People shouldn't be arbitrarily denied access to their banks, locked out of their accounts, or stripped of their banking privileges.
And the word arbitrarily probably has something to do with why she said that. With us now, country music star, co-founder of Old Glory Bank, John Rich, saw the debanking problem firsthand, started Old Glory Bank to take a stand against it. John, it is good to see you, at least in principle. Am I going to get you to agree with Elizabeth Warren on television?
Sure, I can't believe I'm saying that. But yeah, I'll agree with her. It's interesting why she would make those statements when she fully well knows that for the past 4 or 5 years, the woke banking system has targeted conservatives mercilessly and endlessly and put many conservative Americans out of business. They have caused them some irreparable harm to their personal finances and to their businesses. So to hear her say that, okay, all right, I agree with you. The word arbitrarily is a word that can be used in many different ways. But people have been debanked. That word used to be a conspiracy theory. If you went on social media and said so-and-so got debanked, everybody would say there's no such thing as debanking. And then you find out that Bank of America not only was debanking people and other big banks too, but they're also turning over your private records where you shop. Do you remember that story? They asked, the federal government asked the bank, hey, we want to know where your customers are shopping. And instead of the bank saying, sorry, you're going to have to take us to court for that, they just turned it all over and showed Joe Biden and his cronies where everybody was shopping. I mean, that is how woke and disgusting the banking world in America has become.
Okay, so you guys started Old Glory, starting to get now some traction. You promised to protect American consumers and those who work with you at the bank. That said, ... you now have Donald Trump in office telling the banks not to do this. What's now the point of Old Glory if Donald Trump's going to fix it?
Well, the entire banking system is still there. Okay, they may have crawled back in the shadows for a minute, but they're not going anywhere. And there are other ways they can hurt you as a conservative other than just shutting off your bank account. They can deny loans. They can keep you from getting what you need to get to chase the American dream. Old Glory Bank was founded by myself, Dr. Ben Carson, Larry Elder, former Governor Fallon of the great state of Oklahoma. And we put this together because we know that there are people in powerful places in the United States and a lot of them in the private sector in the banking world that salivate at the idea of being able to hurt conservatives and conservative businesses through their banking practices. OldGloryBank.com is the website. We're now over 50,000 customers, all 50 states. It takes less than 10 minutes to open an account. And guess what, Leland? If you call Old Glory Bank on the phone, an American answers the phone, you can understand what they're saying. They're nice. They walk you right through the process. Man, you're not going, I'm sorry, I can't. What did you say? None of that nonsense. Okay. It is owned by Americans. It serves Americans. And it is growing by leaps and bounds right now.
I want to get you on this. Bank of America put out a statement after Donald Trump called them out. We'll put it up on the screen for you, essentially denying that they have done anything wrong and that they, quote unquote, debank conservatives. You say, I just want to get, for people who don't follow this, in a minute or less, tell me what you mean by debanking. And is this literally they say somebody's a gun store and one day they decide, we're not going to give you your business anymore?
Yeah, they just stop all your transactions. By the way, I'd say about that post you just put up, they said we have 70 million customers. Guess what Bank of America did right after they posted that? Turned off the comments. They didn't want anybody to be able to comment on that post. That's how much they care about their customers. They just turned them off. So, yeah, they do all kinds of things. For gun companies, I know for a fact they have just stopped all their transactions nationwide and put companies on the edge of bankruptcy. So, listen, there's one thing I do want to get in before you let me go. There's something special that we do at Old Glory Bank for our active duty military, for our firefighters, law enforcement, and Border Patrol. And that is, if you're an Old Glory Bank customer, you have an account with us, and God forbid you're killed in the line of duty while actively serving, we give you a $100,000 death benefit. No questions asked. You can't name another company on earth that offers something like that. We're dead serious about serving our fellow Americans. We're dead serious about having a parallel economy and giving Americans an option from the woke bank system that will still be there long after Donald Trump is president. So everybody needs to go. OldGloryBank.com. Check it out.
All right. John, thank you very much. Telling that you guys got time in front of the U.S. Senate Day. We appreciate it. Thank you. Speaking of banks, Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri and Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont co-sponsored a bill. The bill would cap credit card interest rates at 10%. Sounds great, right? Bipartisan support to save us all money. Here is Senator Hawley.
This is not a sustainable situation. It is not sustainable. This has to change. 1.17 trillion in debt. This has to change. And I'll just end with this, Mr. Chairman. I thought one of the best proposals that the President-elect Trump, made during his last campaign, his most recent campaign, was to cap the interest rates of credit cards. So we could do that.
Now, you really can, but let's just go with it. Much like defunding the police, capping credit card interest rates will hurt the very people it is designed to help. A 10% cap sounds better than defunding the police, obviously, but the result is going to be the same. The poorest among us get crushed. Americans hold a record $1.17 trillion in credit card debt as of 2023. Average household credit card debt is $21,000. So yes, Americans are getting crushed. Banks charge high interest rates on credit cards because they are unsecured loans. So right now, the average credit card rate is 28%, 28.61% to be exact. The average mortgage rate is 7%. So here's the difference. The mortgages are secured by your house, often guaranteed by the government. Credit cards are not. The high interest rates incentivize the banks to take the risk. At 10%, no bank will risk loaning unsecured money, especially to working class Americans. So therefore, only the very rich, the people who don't need credit cards, will have them. Effectively, Josh Hawley has proposed cutting off a lifeline for tens of millions of Americans. The laws of economics cannot be repealed, even by an act of Congress. So sure, sticking it to the bank sounds great, all for it. But it will hurt the very people it is designed to help. We have asked Hawley and Sanders to come on and prove me wrong. Stay tuned. Donald Trump wants to clean house at the FBI, but first he has to pick those to fire. The new way the FBI is trying to protect its own from the president. FBI employees who worked on January 6th investigations won't be fired. New memo from the acting deputy attorney general says in part the individuals who should be concerned are those who acted with corrupt or partisan intent, who blatantly defied orders from department leadership, or who exercised discretion in weaponizing the FBI. This week, the FBI turned over deeply personal details of thousands of its own employees. Donald Trump has said he wants to clean house at the Bureau.
Well, I think the FBI was a very corrupt institution, and I'm a victim of it in a true sense. I was able to beat it, but other people have been treated horribly. I think the FBI had a great reputation. I think its reputation was really damaged badly, as is DOJ. Look at what they've done in terms of weaponization. Look at what they've done to a political opponent. Probably got me elected by what they did.
There's a lot of truth to that. Attorney Bradley Moss is part of the team representing the FBI Agents Association, 7 unnamed agents who brought a case against the DOJ. Hearing tomorrow, 10:30 a.m., federal court in D.C., with a judge appointed by President Biden. What exactly are you asking the judge to do?
Sure, Leland. So this is a rather straightforward and actually kind of narrow case at the moment. It's to ensure the anonymity and the privacy of these line, rank and file FBI personnel. They range from special agents to forensics examiners to technical specialists, all the people who do the nuts and bolts behind the scenes for the most part of FBI investigations. They're tasked with a project. They're told what the initial evidence is. They're told to look to determine if there is evidence of a crime, and then to turn that over to the Justice Department to pursue a potential prosecution. That was their job. Those were their lawful orders.
Okay, so at least based on this statement from the Deputy Attorney General, it doesn't seem like they have anything to worry about.
Yeah, if you notice, though, there was a couple exceptions or loopholes there that were mentioned in that statement, and I could drive a Brinks truck through those exceptions because there's no standard, no criteria by which to judge partisan or corrupt intent or by which to judge weaponization. It's whatever they want it to be.
Okay, but to be fair, right, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, who we were told were true blue Patriot FBI agents later were found out to have text messages. It was very clear that they engaged with corrupt intent. They obviously
that's not what the IG found.
They talked about it in their text messages.
And FBI personnel are allowed to have any number of political views, including for or against the current, or at that time, the candidate Donald Trump. What was relevant, because this is, again, people who are living in ordinary society just like you and me, but who do a particular job, is whether or not it influenced their activities within the Justice Department, within the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
So who gets to decide
that it didn't?
Who gets to decide?
Ordinarily speaking, the Inspector General. That's why we have offices of Inspectors General. Now, that's not good enough for Donald Trump. That's why he just started purging a whole bunch of them, because he doesn't trust anybody but his hand-picked, attack dogs to decide on their own.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at, and I think this may be what it is, that effectively Trump's going to try to fire a bunch of people, and what you're saying is you're going to sue to try to keep that from happening.
And we're not even to that point about trying to stop the firings. Right now, we're just trying to keep the actual names of these individuals out of the hands of the White House, keep it within the Federal Bureau of Investigation, where it's supposed to be, to avoid Donald Trump exposing these people's names and letting loose his army of January 6th folks who got convicted by these various FBI and DOJ officials who are publicly touting retribution against them for daring to prosecute people who stormed the Capitol and tried to murder members of Congress.
All right. Well, the idea of keeping names secret, I got to think about that one. I think there's arguments on either side. Bradley, thank you very much. See what happens in court tomorrow. My guess is you'll probably get your injunction. We'll see. The Supreme Court told, it's probably a pretty good bet. The Supreme Court told colleges and universities they had to stop considering race with admissions. The new evidence, they are ignoring the law. All colleges and universities have an honor code. Basically says cheating is bad. Seems obvious, but cheating is exactly what appears many of America's top colleges are doing. A new lawsuit by white and Asian students claims the University of Southern California system are violating state law by secretly reintroducing race-based admission policies. University of California system has seen a gradual increase in enrollment of Black and Latino students, despite state and federal bans on affirmative action. And remember, of course, it feels like yesterday when the Supreme Court ruled on affirmative action, the left claimed Jim Crow would return.
The court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions. And I strongly disagree with the court's decision.
That's what bothers me about this rolling back. And also what bothers me also is that what's next? Gay marriage?
There is no question that this is a huge step backwards on the path to try to make America more equitable. It's going to have a real impact on real people's lives.
Clearly, the court, in my judgment, stuck a dagger in the back of many of us.
Shan Wu's with us, former federal prosecutor, college student defense lawyer, the perfect man for this, also one of our favorite guests. Good to see you. The Atlantic did a great piece on this. After the fall of affirmative actions, things have not gone the way anyone expected. Yale, Dartmouth, Northwestern, the University of Virginia, Wesleyan, Williams, and Bowdoin all ended up enrolling more Black or Latino students or both. So if you needed affirmative action to have Black and Latino students admitted at a certain rate, and then you took affirmative action away and the number went up, either they were lying about it needing affirmative action or they're cheating.
Well, I think lawsuits are good in this area because it gives you more transparency as to the black box of what's happening there. And I think without that original lawsuit that the court struck down affirmative action on, we wouldn't have learned about these really, what I find, disgusting personality assessments they were doing of Asian American students, saying they were just generally low in personality. But I think you really need to see some details here why the UC system seems to be doing better actually than some of the other folks, because some of the other schools did see rates of admission go down.
I guess you could say it depends on how we decide better,
right.
what is better, what's worse. But maybe it's because the other schools are playing by the rules and doing race-blind admissions. Number of Asian students go up, number of African-American Latino students go down relative to affirmative action numbers, more in line with population numbers, versus the schools that clearly are, there's clearly a reason that the numbers went up, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to figure out that reason because they had been, the California schools have been dealing with that California rule for a while. So they will argue, certainly, that they are better equipped to have dealt with the federal action against it. But it really remains.
You made a point about the black box, right?
Yeah.
Universities are loath to ever open up the black box.
Right.
It tells you what's going on. Yeah. Normally, because when you find stuff, it's embarrassing to the university.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And also, as you open up that kind of black box, you really get an insight into how people are talking, for example, during these meetings, and their sort of intrinsic stereotypes, and sometimes probably some dismissive, insulting things towards the students because, they're seeing a lot of applications. They don't want that sort of secret sauce mix to come out, but without it, it's really hard to know what's actually happening.
So one of the things the Atlantic article pointed out was that the Supreme Court allowed diversity to play a role or people's experiences. So the universities, rather than saying, are you black, are you white, was writing, please tell us how your race, sex, privilege, and sexuality affected your privilege or lack thereof in an essay question, getting at the same thing. How's that not cheating?
Well, I don't think that's cheating because Justice Roberts, in what I consider to be a very poorly reasoned opinion, left a hole big enough to put an aircraft carrier through it because he says exactly that.
Lawyers love this stuff. Okay, the last lawyer we had on was talking about a Brinks truck. I was waiting. Where's he going? Aircraft carrier.
Yeah, I avoided the Brinks truck. But he specifically says, Justice Roberts, that you can do exactly what you just quoted from, which is you can refer to race. So that gives the schools an enormous ability to still use race. Right. And, we can debate whether that's a good or bad thing. But legally speaking, it's just gibberish, that opinion, in terms of what they can or can't do.
Yeah, well, also, it lets students know this is what the universities care about. So,
right.
So there you go.
Absolutely.
Hey, we were right when we said you were the perfect guy for this segment.
Thanks.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. As always, last night about this time, the world was starting to digest a wild moment in history, and that is Donald Trump completely changing the way we look at the Middle East and at foreign policy in the Middle East. And perhaps even more interesting than what happened from Donald Trump, what he said, is how the media covered it and why Trump's not given a fair shake. Here's Chris.